Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Renee Jacobs Anson, and I'm a proud member of the American Friends of the Hebrew University National and Western Regional Board, as well as the International Board of Governors for Hebrew University. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Alongside all of Israel and its people, the student body at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem faced unprecedented hardship and trauma following October 7th. It's friends like you from around the world who came together to support Hebrew University's student community, providing vital funds for academic assistance, psychological and financial support, and much more. On behalf of the university and its global network of friends organizations, I want to extend my heartfelt thanks and gratitude for supporting the We Are One campaign. Your support has done more than you know. Today, we have the privilege of hearing from Hebrew University's Dean of Students, Professor Zohar Kampf. He will guide us through the current state of the student body and the challenges they face as they move forward. But before we dive into Professor Kampf's speech, I'd like to take a moment to share an exciting milestone. 2025 marks the centennial of both the Hebrew University and the American Friends Organization. Since their founding in 1925, this collaboration, along with others established worldwide, has stood as a beacon of perseverance, solidarity, and transformative impact. Together, we have supported groundbreaking research and enriched the educational experience of thousands of students and scholars. We hope you'll join us throughout this historic year as we honor this remarkable legacy with a series of inspirational events. Your participation will not only celebrate the past, but also help shape the future, ensuring Hebrew University will continue to thrive for the next 100 years and beyond. For more information, because there are many of you from all over the world, please visit your respective friends organizations' websites. We will also share the links in the chat for your convenience. Thank you again for being here. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce Professor Zohar Kampf, who is a professor of language and communication at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. He's the author of 2 books and more than 90 chapters and articles in language communication and international study journals. Professor Kampf is a member of several editorial boards, including Communication Theory, Cambridge Elements in Pragmatics, and the Journal of Language, Aggression, and Conflict. Since 2017, he has served as an associate editor of the Journal of Pragmatics. And at the Hebrew University, he held several management positions, including serving as the head of the Swiss Center for Conflict Research, vice dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences, and as of last year, the dean of students. His current research project focuses on the consequences of interpersonal relationships between leaders for interstate relations. And now it's time to hand over the mic to Professor Zohar Kampf. Please join me in welcoming him as he tells us about navigating challenges, insights into student life at the Hebrew University. Professor?
Thank you very much, Renee. I just shared my screen and I hope you can all see it. So thank you very much for this invitation, which is very important. I'm very excited to be here and speak in front of you. As Renee shared, I am a professor of language and communication. And just recently, I became the Dean of Students of the Hebrew University. Since October 2024, I replaced the legendary former Dean of Students, Guy Arpaz, who served in this position for 6 years. And I just stepped into this position, and look how I grown up since October 24. You know, I was a little boy with huge shoes, and now I'm a dean. So I really hope that my takeover of this dean of students will be uh, a continuation of what Guy did in this office for the last 6 years. So what are we going to talk about? I will first share with you, thank you very much, Renee, for the wonderful presentation. I will also share with you how did I become the Dean of Students. And we will also speak about what is the Dean of Students Office, the institution that I'm leading right now. And we will take an historical perspective, festive for the 100 years for the Hebrew University. We also looked at archives to see what is the history of the Dean of Students Office at the Hebrew University. We will focus on the challenges, heartbreaks, and responses following October 7, and I will briefly talk about what is coming. Hopefully not a tsunami, but a great, great challenge. So I'm a member of I'm a member of the Hebrew University. I first joined in 2008, and since then I served in several positions, including the head of the Swiss Center of Conflict Research. As Renee told, I was the vice dean of social sciences. I was the head of the graduate program of the social sciences, and many more other projects. This is because I'm a good citizen. It is important for me also to be a good citizen, not just a researcher. And admittedly, I have to be frank, administration was my second choice. My first choice was always research. I was enthusiastic. I'm still enthusiastic, but I was very enthusiastic about the relationship between words and deeds, between language and action. And I did a lot of research, especially in the fields of language and communication, about political apologies, political condemnations, about complaints, about all kind of speech acts that change our world or design our world differently. And in the last 5 years, I also started to cooperate with another researcher from the faculty, from my faculty, from the Department of International Relations. We started to study a very big question that was 5 years ago, how interpersonal affection and how amicable communication is translated to international relations. We were doing an extensive ethnographic research at the Israeli president residence. We tried to be flies on the wall, trying to point to the practices of amity in elite figures encounters, the knowledge they have, how to create bonds, how to make communication as amicable as possible in order to reap the positive consequences in the future. We interviewed 50 politicians and foreign affair administration people, starting from prime ministers to the CEO of the Israeli Foreign Affairs Office. We had a wonderful, wonderful research. We published a lot, and it was it was very enjoyable, I have to say, to be in all kind of cocktails and dinners. And, I felt that I'm on the right way. I'm on the right way, and I did it, published paper and became a full professor in 12 years, this is a great academic path for me. It was a great academic path for me. And then came October 7. October 7 changed everything. Not, of course, for not only, I believe it also affect immensely. You were affected by October 7, but I'm and my colleagues and of course today my students, this event changed everything for us. For me personally, I lost all passion for research for at least several months. I lost the significance of what I'm doing. I was sitting at home after October 7, November, during November 23, December 23, January 24, asking myself, what am I doing? What is the point of what I'm doing right now in research? Several people read, several people um, admire my work, but how this affect Israel and how what am I doing now? I can't just write and write more papers. I have to say that this existential threat that I feel that I felt at the time was accompanied by something on a personal issue. My wife was diagnosed with a breast cancer on October 10th. So it was a real nightmare, and probably the biggest challenge, not just for Israel, but also for me personally. And then came a phone call from the rector from the provost of the Hebrew University, asking me if I would like to take the position of Dean of Students. It took me some 48 hours to think about it and to understand that this is the right point in time for me to take a step back from research and do some things for the good university that accepted me and let me do my work in the last 14 years, and to the state of Israel, which I love, and I feel that I raise my children here, and I really want them to live in Israel in the future. So I had to do something. So I said yes. And I became the Dean of Student of the Hebrew University, and that was 3 months ago. So before I'll start to tell you about what is the Dean of Students Office, what are we doing, how an historical perspective, and how we confront the challenge, I would just say note that what I'm doing here, I'm going to show an institutional perspective about the challenges that we're facing up. That means that we're taking the institutional perspective and not a bottom-up or students' initiative to confront the challenge. There's so many initiatives that going on right now. For example, a colleague of mine told me about the Middle Meets initiative of students that is supported by one of you. This is David Oldenoff. And there are so many initiatives right now, but I'm going to restrict myself to the institutional perspective on the challenges that we're now facing. So I said yes to the position of Dean of Students, and I have to tell you frankly, I had very little knowledge about what it means to be the Dean of Students. Today, I can tell you that the Dean of Students is the person that is responsible for the welfare and well-being of all Hebrew University students. My role, as I understand it, is to materialize the academic potential of each student at the Hebrew University, regardless of her or his economic background, socioeconomic status, religious background, ethnic background, and so forth. So this is the purpose of the Dean of Student office. And the Dean of Student, we will take always, we take at specific points in this presentation, we'll take an historical perspective. The Dean of Student office is quite, you know, it is a 135 years invention. First in Harvard University, the first Dean of Student was LeBron Russell Briggs. He was then called the Dean of Men, and that was right for the time. And the motto that inspired or navigated this idea to establish a position of Dean of Student was in the Latin phrase, the idea was in loco parentis, instead of parents. This is an institutional figures that replace the father and mother of students coming to learn and to acquire education. At the Hebrew University, I found out that the first dean of students was a rabbi called Bernard Kasper. He was appointed in 1956 after an increase in the number of students coming to the Hebrew University, and all kind of challenges that were related to this, to the growing population of students in Jerusalem. So, and interestingly, Bernard Kasper was a rabbi, but he was, and we are talking here about crisis and war. He was a military rabbi of the Jewish Brigade during World War II. He owned a degree from Cambridge University. He was South African, by the way, and he was appointed in 56 and stayed in the position until 1963. And so the first dean of students was a military rabbi. He was appointed in 1956, and we'll get to this point later when I'll speak on the Suez War, 1956. So the dean of student and challenges are interrelated. This is, by the way, the appointment letter that he received then. I would like to congratulate you on your arrival in Jerusalem and your new position as Dean of Student Affairs at the Hebrew University. So this is our first Dean of Student, a rabbi, a military person, and appointed in a very crucial year, 1956, just before the war. So let's jump ahead. 69 years later, by the way, next year we're celebrating 70 years for the Dean of Student Office. Today, the Dean of Student Office is very different. We have about 100 employees on a regular basis. Back then it was one. We serve 25,000 students in academic units on all 4 campuses of the Hebrew University. And our goals is to provide academic, personal, material conditions for students in need and to realize the academic potential of all students accepted to the Hebrew University. We have several units. I'm not going to delve into each one of the units' services, but I will just briefly go over the 9 units that I'm managing right now. Accessibility unit, the Learning Center for Blind and Learning Disabilities. These centers serve more than 3,000 students today. They diagnose their learning abilities, they give them tutoring and mentoring, exam adjustment, organize workshop, offer technological aid, and support all needs for those who had mental or other or any kind of issues that avoid them to realize their academic potential. We have the psychological service that we are very proud of it. We have more than 40 psychologists working right now at the Hebrew University, giving aid to almost 600 students right now, even more with the war. So we provide this psychological aid and support for our students. We have 4,000 rooms in 8 residential complex with a capacity of 92%. We give scholarships for almost 2,000 students with a budget of 23 million shekels. And we have a career center that have prepared students for their career. We have an equal opportunities center that give an extensive economics, social, and academic support for students who are identified as a part of a unique population, first generation in academia, a low economic or challenging socioeconomic status, Israeli Arabs, ultra-Orthodox, Ethiopian immigrants, so all kind of population that need our support. And we have another unit that I'm very proud of, the Social Involvement Community Service that connects students to Jerusalem and the community at large. And what I see very important in this unit is that we are developing their sense of social responsibility, how to become a better person and how to become a better citizen in Israel. Today, we have 1,200 students volunteers, and we expect more and more students to come and join the spirit of volunteering. We also have all other services like reserve coordinators who right now works in a full-time job, and even more than that, parenting coordinated, students activities coordinator, shuttle service, and so many other services that today we give our students, and we are a huge organization at this point. And it is important to say that this huge organization was developing very fast. I have to say, I would say in the last 8 years, it became, it more than doubled this. I would say it tripled itself in the last 8 years. There are so many reasons for that. We can, at the Q&A, we can discuss these issues. And as I mentioned earlier, there's a close link between the Dean of Student Office and wartime. And I gave one of my PhD students a mission before this presentation to go to the archive of the Hebrew University and search for materials that tell us about the history of the Dean of Students Office at wartime. And this is very interesting, I have to say. So as we know already, Bernard Kasper, Rabbi Bernard Kasper, was the first Dean of Students appointed in 56, just before the Suez War. And he was himself a military rabbi for the Jewish Brigade. And he was focusing on assisting and caring for the rights of students who were recruited. He helped them to, in any aspect of the studies, and complete their exams. And there were waves of immigration back then between 56 and 33. This is his appointment years. And he was in touch with various Zionist organizations around the world, helping all immigrant students in Israel to carry out their studies and to support them in whatever they need. So this was one Rabbi Bernard Kasper, who was responsible for whole student back then at the Hebrew University. Let's step to the 73 war, the Yom Kippur War. So at the Yom Kippur, the 73 War, more than 100 students and scholars were killed in this war. Hundreds were wounded. And the year, 2 years were jumped together, and there were so many challenges back then. I believe that maybe today, in an historical perspective, only the current challenge is greater than the 73 challenge. Um, they so students were off in the battlefield, and when they came back to the campus, most of them didn't have any job, and they need some financial support. And here we see a letter that we found in the archive of the dean of students back then, asking for more 10,000 liras, which means in American dollars today it would be one $160,000, something like that. And that is an additional amount of money to support those students who came back from the battlefield to the campus. Um, there were all kind of supports back then. The treatment of recruited students included assistance in completing exams, completing study materials, printed lectures, reproduced and distributed. Textbooks were purchased and were also distributed to the students. Volunteer students recorded lectures, and teachers and lecturers dedicated their private time for the benefits of students who have returned from service. But still, as we can see in this letter, there were still complaints, and there were countless complaints, and there were countless issues and countless complaints back then about ignoring the difficulties of the students. And we have to remember at that time, the student was not at the center. The research was at the center, the institution was at the center, not the student. Let's take another step forward in time and move on to the Second Lebanon War in 2006, where the Dean of Student Office was bigger then. We had nearly 2,000 students recruited, and they were getting financial support and academic support from the university in terms of customized schedules for exam and a delay in submitting assignments and all supports that back then were seen as essential for the students. But as we can see here, complaints remains. You can't stop people from complaining, of course, until today. And here we found another complaint about ignoring students, and it was quite difficult to get all these adjustments for the students. And here we have a complaint from the Students' Union about the difficult feeling of being ignored by the university administration. That was 19 years ago. And I also asked several of my colleagues for stories about back in the days. And they told me amazing stories about how they came back from, for example, the head of our psychological service, Dr. Eyal Eliash, he told me that his brother fell in the army in 1987, and he came back to the campus, and he had to manage by himself. No, he wasn't thinking about telling someone about his issues in 1987, and no one thought about approaching him. There's another story of a professor from the Department of Education, from the School of Education, that he told me about students that didn't want to share their materials with him after the First Lebanon War in '82. And our own shy Losipo, told me that in 2014, that is not long ago, there were not custom scheduled for exams after another round of violence between Israel and Gaza and Hamas. So that was until really recently, 1914, that we still heard complaints and stories that I find it hard to believe that you will find today. And then came October 7. Okay, so the change in the Dean of Student Office started a bit earlier, 8 years ago, but no one prepared the Dean of Students, the Hebrew University, or the State of Israel to this calamity and to the crisis. And let's see a little bit numbers about this crisis and how did we respond to this crisis. So first of all, let's look at this number of Hebrew University reserve students, recruited students since October 723. So at the peak, we see that at a specific point in time, we have more than 4,500 students in reserve. Today, at the start of this academic year, when I was appointed, 1 month after I was appointed, we had less than 2,000 students, and right now we have something like 700 students in reserve. And you can see here the statistic about the faculty and staff of the Hebrew University. 740 faculty and staff members are in reserve or were in reserve, and including 46 faculty members, 101 administrative staff, research support, part-time employees, all dedicated to this war that is still going on, or just there's a pause right now in Gaza. And of course, when there are wars, there are causalities, and many of our students were killed, injured. We have Carmel Gat, and who was our student, who was kidnapped and murdered in Gaza. We have several students that some of them I knew personally from all kind of activities. For example, Eitan Kopulevich from Law. I was playing basketball with him several months before he passed. He was killed in Gaza. And we have a faculty member, Jonathan Dekel Chen, whose son is still in captivity. We're trying to preserve their memory, and we are definitely gratitude for what they've done for us. So in this situation, and I'm not mentioning here all these displaced students, from ruined communities in the south and in the north that suffered from the war and had to evacuate their homes, and they are at the Hebrew University, and we're trying to support them. All the injured and those that are stressed. All the students, of course, are stressed, but there are some that are affected enormously from the situation. And we are responding to the crisis in academic, financial, and psychological aid. And I will briefly introduce what we're doing for these students right now. In terms, and here again, I would like to say thank you for We Are One project and foreign relations, external relations that share these statistics with me, and I'm showing it right now. So since October 7, we gave 5,777 stipends to students who were serving in the military. A small support, a small financial support for those who left everything and went to the battle. We gave those students 28,000 tutoring hours and 10,000 hours of marathons that allowed them to complete the materials that they lost, that they didn't been able to study during their service. At the accessibility unit, we saw an increase in the number of students in need. 45% of the students struggle with, of those that are at the accessibility units, they also struggle with mental health challenges since October 7. We have right now 70 students that are diagnosed with PTSD. We have an additional 128 students that are assisted by the accessibility unit, including reservists, partners of reservists, family members of hostages, injured individuals, Nova survivors, and friends of Nova for people that were murdered in the Nova party, and displaced students. This is just the accessibility unit. At the learning disabilities unit, we have 500 students reservists that reported worsening their ability to study. And we give them additional 100 monthly hours of staffing to address their needs. And we are also treating 45 students who were displaced, injured, and relatives of hostages that received our help. At the psychological service, where we see a leap jump in the in asking for psychological assistance, we are treating 230 reservists, and we're subsidizing them. 52 students participate in workshops, and 45 students in one-on-one mental well-being workshops. We are organizing workshops for faculty members and staff members, and all kind of initiatives that helps the students and administration and academic staff to survive in this crazy situation. Now, don't get me wrong, we get a lot of complaints, but right now I will show the thank you letter that we're receiving, and I'm not taking credit for these thank you letters. As I told you, I replaced Professor Guy Arpaz, who had to struggle and to work for all this support, to get this support for the students, and these letters and these thank you letters, he has the credit. And I was really moved from this 30th student, Mount Scopus reservist, who wrote us a very long letter, and he signed the letter. He ended the letter with the words, "In their actions, those who helped me restored my faith in humanity." And this is a very moving sentence for me, because this is the specific reason I took the position of being the Dean of Students. This is the position that allows me at this specific point in time to make a change. So let's, before ending this session, let's look ahead. And I'm afraid that speaking with my colleagues and with the head of the units at the Dean of Student office, we are unfortunately looking for a tsunami in the coming. It's starting right now, but what we expect to see, it's huge waves in 1 year, 2 years, and up to 5 years from now. And I mean, okay, so I gave you the number of 70 students with PTSD, but we have hundreds of students that are coming back from the battlefield, and they had all kind of psychological issues that are related to feeling incompetent and misunderstood, because you have to imagine the experience of one day being in a battle, uh, endangering our lives, seeing our friends injured and killed, and a couple of days later, coming to the campus, see people laughing around, see people succeeding in their studies, and feeling and the sense of feelings of these reservist students that they are behind. And we see more depression and more feeling of incompetent, and more students that are very talented that are now um, that are just can't pursue their studies, and we are doing the best to help them. What we're doing now and what we're planning for the future is to build the crisis intervention and to increase on-call staffing to respond to students in crisis in the coming years, because more and more students are now need psychological aid. We're developing internet-based anxiety treatment, learning technologies for disabled students. We are looking right now for so many disabled students, students that were in the army, were injured, lost some of their abilities, and now they're coming to the Hebrew University, and we have to serve them. So we're uh, looking for all kind of learning technologies that will assist this mission. And we keep on developing our routine uh, services like the Multicultural Arts Center, developing career opportunities, equal opportunities, because when we can't work just in a crisis mode, we have to think about routine for a better future. And in order to create a better future, we have to establish these foundations that allow people to put this horrible point in time or period in time behind them and to look forward. So this is our thoughts about the future. And I would like to thank you for listening, and hope you learned something, a little thing about the senses of and the atmosphere right now from the perspective of the institution of the Hebrew University students. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Professor Zohar. Um, Zohar Kampf. I want to say that I know we all appreciate you opening your heart to us. One of the things about being a member of the family of support for Hebrew University is that we truly are family. Hebrew University is not the ivory tower that you might experience in other universities. I already feel like we're mishpacha, and we are here for you,
Thank
and
you very much.
you are there for us. So I want to thank you so much. You are the right person for the right
Thank you.
time.
Thank you.
We got a wonderful question from Sarah, who says, Mazel tov on your new role.
Thank
How
you,
can
Sarah.
your research on communication among diplomats inform your management of the coming tsunami?
Wonderful question, indeed. So I'm studying, or until October 7, I was studying social interactions, people interacting. I was specifically focusing on first meeting between people, how they are getting acquainted and develop their relations. I feel right now that communicating with the students that will come back to the Hebrew University to learn, and with the new students that we expect them to come to the Hebrew University, um, I have the skills to communicate with them amicably and empathically, and to better listen to their problems. I don't have any therapeutic background, and I have to share with you that in the last 3 or 4 months, I heard stories that no one prepared me to hear these stories. Amazing stories, horror stories about students from the South that looked out of the windows. I will, if with your permission, I will share one story of a student that uh, touched me. He is a student from Ofakim, um, a southern city with a low economic status, very challenging place to live. I visited several times in Ofakim. And this student in medicine, he looked out of his window and saw Hamas terrorists down in the streets. He, his brother, and his father took their guns and went down to fight these terrorists. This poor student saw his brother killed and his father killed just in front of his eyes. And since then, he's struggling. He's struggling. I met him last week. He said, "Thank you for chasing me. We are chasing him. We don't give up on him because it is the easiest way is to just get into a cocoon and forget about everything." And I feel that my experience in communication and interaction allowed me to first to chase him, to think about and approach him and nudge him about all the things that he must do in order to get our support. And his thank you was his gratitude was another point in time that I came back home and told my wife, "Thank you. I'm blessed. I'm blessed. I'm so lucky to be in the right rank in the right time to get this position and do these things and help these people that are in need." So, and I feel that I'm equipped with the communication skills that are needed in this time. So thank you, Sarah, for this wonderful question.
I know you had mentioned that your team is about 100 at this moment.
Even
And
more than that, this is
okay,
just the regular stuff. We have
that was one of the questions was how big is your team? We went from the We Are One campaign, and we are now in the We Are 100 campaign. Um, so one of the questions from Frankie is, what can we do as AFHU and obviously friends organizations from all over the world to help support the students? Is it financial? And is there a possibility of sending letters of support? That's one thing that we really want the students and the faculty to know how much we love you and we support you, not just financially, but emotionally. Most of us have never, many of us have never been to the Hebrew University. Most of us never studied there, but we feel that our heart and our family live there in you. So how can we, do you have some suggestions of how we can help on different levels?
So first of all, we feel your love. This is something that we can't ignore. We feel your support from the first day of this war until now. I was meeting with several representatives who came to the Hebrew University. That was a couple of months ago, and the empathy, the positiveness, they show this is something that is really, really touching. And I know that at least in the management, we feel the support and we know your financial support and emotional support in us. This is a very good question that I don't really have right answers right now because we're always in the process of learning how we can improve and what we can do better. And I promise you that if I can think about things that you can do more than what you're doing right now, I will let you know.
That would be wonderful.
This is my promise.
Many of us are planning on being there in June for
I'm
the
looking forward to meet you all.
anniversary. And I hope you'll find a way for us to connect with the students.
You will, sure,
Let us hear from those who've served. Let us
of
hear
course,
the challenges. We
of
are one,
course.
we are family. Are there any more questions? All right. I think that we will go ahead and wrap up today's seminar. This has been incredible. You've touched our hearts.
Thank you.
And I think that the challenges will be there for many years to come, and we will be there for you to help you along the way.
Thank you very much.
For those who want to learn more about Israel's premier university, I would ask you to, if you're here in the United States, to join us by going to afhu.org and become part of our family. We truly are family. For those around the world, you have organizations as well. And join us, become part of this amazing, wonderful history and family. So thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day. Am Yisrael Chai.
תודה רבה.
Toda.